All right, so this is going to be our walkthrough for how we graph things using Microsoft Excel. I'm going to do something similar to this. I'm making this video ahead of time for a couple of students who couldn't be there and wanted to work ahead, but I'm going to do almost the exact same thing in class tomorrow. This is going to be a much more specific, let's say specific version of exactly what to do. I'm not going to go through all of the neat features of Excel. This is going to be a couple of reminders and then exactly the steps you should follow anytime I ask you to make a chart or graph or anything like that that we're going to be doing in this class in general. So if you open up your web browser, this is me looking at the district's homepage, a lot of folks are able to get to Microsoft Excel through the Student Office 365 link. So if you click this, it will take you to a page that looks similar to this. I do not want you guys to click this version of Excel. This version of Excel is not the version that you want to use. This is their online version because I'm doing this through Chrome. And this version, while it will let you make a graph, won't let you do any of the trend line analysis that we need to do for it, right? The whole point in physics or science in general is not just to identify a trend to figure out what exactly that trend is, what its numerical values are, so that we can use it to make predictions about the future or other events in any sort of regard. So the online version does not let you do that. If you are going to use Excel, you're going to need to actually go to your Start menu, and in the Start menu somewhere, somehow, even if you've got to go all the way through all of the files that the school has, and or not the school, you have, you should find Microsoft Excel there somewhere. This is the file you need to open, not through a web browser. If you do not have this, like I mentioned before in class, you need to download it. Downloading it you can do from the school's website. Once you log into 365, you guys have those free downloads, right? Click to download those Office 365 apps. Those are the ones you want. Select Excel if you don't want Word or PowerPoint or any of the others. Just pick Excel by itself, but you're definitely going to need that version of Excel. When you fired up that version of Excel, you're going to see a document or a page that looks somewhat like this. This can look overwhelming because it's not the normal crisp, clean, blank slate that you get from a Word document, but we're going to only use a handful of features from this. The first thing we're going to be doing, the only thing really, is making a data table so that we can tell Excel to make our graph for us. It will do all of it in its own. There's no calculations. There's no thought you have to put into this other than you have a couple of columns and a couple of rows. This first column, you treat it always like an ordered pair. It's going to be X, comma, Y. So this is my X axis. Column B, sorry for that, is my Y axis. And so any numbers that you put in column A or you put in column B, that's where they're going to be plotted. So I'm just going to come up with some random numbers right now. Something that's going to have a slope that is really easy to remember. If you're doing long trains of these, let me turn that. If you're doing long trains of these sets that always, in this case, go up by 2 or always go up by 3 or always go up by tens, you can highlight the whole thing and then come down to the bottom right-hand corner and just extend that out as far as you want to go. I'm going to take this to 30, right? And then for my y-axis, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I went up by 2s on my x-axis, so I'm going to go up by 4s on my y-axis. That way you get a slope that you should recognize right off the bat. If we're rising 4, going over running 2, then that 4 over 2 becomes 2. So the slope of this line should have a value of 2 when we actually go to graph it. You've got your 2 sets of data. You don't need to put a title here in column number 1. Just recognize that that is the way that Excel sees these cells. So when you go to plot this, you need to select upper right-hand corner, or upper left-hand corner, sorry, bottom left-hand corner, it doesn't matter, but you need to highlight all of the data together. Once you highlight all of the data together, you're simply going to go to Insert. And when you click Insert, it will take you over to this middle section right here that is labeled Charts. We're going to insert a chart. We are only ever going to insert one specific kind of chart, and that's going to be a scatter plot. We don't want a scatter plot with lines. We don't want just the line. We don't want whatever this is or this. I don't even know what this is. I don't know why that's relevant or how it's anything that you could possibly use. It's not relevant to what we're doing. We're looking for trends in the data, and that's it. So your general generic scatter plot. Click the exact same thing that I had just clicked. Now we've got to go in and add a couple of elements to this chart. I don't want you to do anything fancy up here. Yeah, you can change the way it looks, make it look kind of neat and cool. Sure, I don't want you to do that. Leave it plain simple. Let's keep this as easy as possible. So we're going to have to add a few additional elements to this graph. You can add those elements right here with this little plus sign, right? This is how you would add, remove, or change chart elements. Or you can come up here to the drop-down menu that's at the top of the page. When you click that drop-down menu, the only things we need to add are going to be axes titles. You need to know what your horizontal axis and what your vertical axis represented, what those measurements were. Otherwise, they're just arbitrary numbers that don't mean anything. So here I'm going to label this as my x-axis. This is how I also know that this is my x-axis. Remember, my x-axis only went to a value of 30, and so this one tops out at 30. So that first column, column A, is my x-axis. It's always going to be your x-axis. Over here, I'm going to label this as my y-axis. What I want you to do is every time you go to label this, don't label it x-axis and y-axis. I know what the x-axis and the y-axis is. Your reader, if you publish this, if you ever get to that point in your career, will know what the x-axis and the y-axis mean. What you need to do is in the place of where x-axis is, tell me what it was. Is it time? Is it distance? Is it mass? Is it an amount of force? And then actually include the units there. What you're going to type up here is exactly what you have on that title axis. So just to keep it simple, it's always y-axis versus x-axis. Students will oftentimes want to make something cute. They'll want to come up with a nice, fun little title for the graph. You don't need a fun, cute, nice little title for the graph. What I need for you guys to do is keep it simple, because there will be a couple of labs where you're going to have multiple graphs that you have to make, and I don't want to have to try and figure out, well, this cute title goes with this set of data and this cute title goes with this set of data, especially if you do more complicated versions of this in college. Your professors will vehemently refuse to accept anything that has a cute title. You'll get points off immediately, because it should be simple and concise. The title should tell the reader exactly what is found in that graph, nothing more. And so, if you've got, I'll go back and I'll change these so that you can see them. Let's do distance, and my unit here for distance will likely be measured in meters. And down here for my x-axis, I'm going to put time. We'll talk about why we put these here a little bit later on. Time is going to be measured in seconds. So I've got distance and time, which means for my title, this is going to be a distance versus time graph. It's that easy. It's that simple. Now you have a couple of options once this graph is made. We're not done yet. You can get to this point in the Excel online version. This is what you can't do, and this is what is essential. What you cannot do is, if we go back to, let's click on the graph, right? It'll take me back to that chart titles thing. Let's go back and let's add a trend line. These trend lines need to be specific. It's always going to be linear for our class unless I tell you that it's a different kind of trend line. I don't want you to pick the version of this graph that connects the dots for you, because you might see from here some of those dots might not fall on the line. Now this one I made a perfect slope of 2 all the way going up and to the right, a positive 2 I should say, but they might not always follow that line. So you don't want to play connect the dots. This isn't going to turn out to be some awesome penguin in a top hat sort of drawing. This is your data, and you need to follow the trend of that data. So you're going to insert that trend line and click on it. There's one more thing that we're going to need. And instead of just clicking where you saw trend line, linear, instead of just clicking that linear trend line, I actually want you to open more trend line options. When you open more trend line options, you get this whole thing over here that pops up. Make sure you're selected on this last little part, the far right hand side, not what is this one called, line options. or effects. Yeah, line and fill effects. We don't want those. We want trend line options. Scroll all the way down. Don't set the intercept at 0. Your data might not have a y-intercept that starts at 0. This set of data does, but yours might not. What you will click is display equation on chart, the middle guy right here that is green down below. When you click display equation on chart, you will see exactly what the equation of that line is. It's written out as y equals mx plus b. The plus b part in this particular line that I made is 0. So it just left that off. But this is what we're going to be using in our calculations. So for the circle lab, for any of the worksheets that we do after that, you guys are going to need to use this equation of the line in order to be successful in those labs, to answer those questions that I ask of you. If you try to do this in Excel online, it won't give you the equation of that line. You'll have to calculate it by hand, and that whole process will be significantly longer. Now that we have our graph made, it doesn't matter to me where you put the equation of that line. It just has to be in there somewhere so that it's not, covered up by the trend line itself. So bring it up off to the side. Once you have this graph done, you have a couple of options. If you're submitting just a graph for the homework, you can simply go to File, Save. Obviously, you want to save it probably to your OneDrive, wherever your OneDrive is. For me, it's right here. For you, it might be a personal account. I don't know. But the OneDrive through the school, you can save it there. If you don't want to save it there, you can save it if you click Browse to a flash drive or an external hard drive or to your computer desktop, if I'm being completely honest. You can save it there temporarily and then delete it afterwards. That's perfectly acceptable as well. The other option that you have, and now you've got this Excel workbook that you can upload to Teams and all of that good stuff. If you don't want to do that, the easiest thing to do, in my opinion, is to right-click and go to Copy. Once you right-click and go to Copy, now for any lab write-up or other homework assignment you might be working on, you can go into Microsoft Word, you can click Paste. I would paste just a picture of it so that there's no data that can get screwed up or any additions or changes that you can make in Microsoft Word. They try to make it interchangeable between the two so that you can get in there and edit stuff in Microsoft Word, but it doesn't really work. So go to paste as a picture in those paste options. Paste it as a picture. Now that it's a picture, you can type in this document. You can type literally anywhere you want. Write whatever you want. You can change the layout options and text wrapping features so that you can move it and type around it. You can do whatever it is you might need to do for whatever lab report you're working on. And so you've got it there for you guys. You could then type up the document, answer the questions that I ask you to answer, or provide a procedure if that's something that was part of that lab. It will be as we progress. Save it. When you go to save this document, I encourage you to click this button. When you go to Save As, I'm going to save it to my OneDrive, just my generic account. I encourage you to change it to a PDF. If you change it to a PDF, it loads in Teams very easily. I can grade it, get it back to you guys ASAP. That's the easiest way to do this. And so this video is going to remain online for you guys to use whenever we have to make a graph of any kind. This is the best way to go about doing that. So please feel free to email me any questions you guys might have. I hope it helped.